"Sir, step away from the dock right now." That was the first sentence the officer barked at me, his hand already drifting toward his belt like he was deciding which tool of authority to deploy. And I started laughing. Not the nervous kind. The kind that hits when the universe suddenly slides the last puzzle piece into place and the picture is so absurd, so poetic, so perfectly ironic that you can't help but laugh at the cosmic timing of it all. Across the lake, standing on the balcony of her oversized designer home, with her arms folded like a judge delivering a sentence, was Marilyn Crestwood, the proud, polished, high-gloss president of the Silver Shoals Preserve HOA, watching me like she'd just won. Like today was going to be the day she got me kicked off the lake and out of her community for good. She had no idea. Not 30 seconds earlier, Marilyn had been screaming at me across the water with a tone only HOA presidents and malfunctioning smoke detectors can achieve, loud, piercing, and aggressive enough to cause a migraine on a sunny day. She was claiming I was trespassing on the dock, attached to the land that I owned, or rather, the land I thought I owned. Because what she didn't know was that I had inherited something even she, with all her scheming, control, and community standards, hadn't discovered. I didn't just own that dock. I didn't just own the cabin. I owned the water. Every drop that fed their multi-million-dollar lakefront homes. Every gallon they boasted about in brochures. Every inch of shoreline they advertised as exclusive. Even the Silver Shoals HOA, the beast she controlled with iron-fisted suburban tyranny, depended on water that legally sprang from my land. But before the revelation, before the war, before the handcuffs and the televised meltdown and the federal charges, I was just a 53-year-old man named Henry Hank Delaney, trying to survive the wreckage of a life that cancer had stolen from me. A year before the dock incident, I lived in a quiet neighborhood outside Denver, drifting through days that all felt the same. After losing my wife Lydia to a brutal fight with cancer, the house still smelled like her, lavender lotion and hospital antiseptic. And some nights I'd swear the ghost of that scent alone could level me harder than any electrical surge I'd ever taken in my decades as an electrician. When the letter arrived, thick, legal, official, it felt like a message from another life. My late mother's estranged brother, Elliot Rowan, a reclusive loner who'd lived on a lake in Hawthorne Ridge, Montana for 40 years, had passed away. His estate, according to the notice, was going to public auction. The listing was simple. Hawthorne Ridge Lake Reserve, Parcel 9. Includes territorial spring extraction rights. I had no idea what that meant. But Lydia had always told me to take risks, to do things that scared me, to break routine. And I had her life insurance check sitting untouched in my account, burning a hole straight through my grief. So I packed my truck and drove to Montana. Montana air feels like honesty. Cold, sharp, clean enough to wake the dead. The property auction was held right on the land. A small 1960s cabin perched on 3 acres of pine, with a handcrafted dock stretching into water so clear it looked digitally enhanced. My uncle had built it himself, every board cut and sanded like he'd carved it with devotion. The place was beautiful in a way that made your chest hurt. But surrounding it, just across the lake, was the crown jewel of the rich. Silver Shoals Preserve, 51 luxury lakefront homes shaped like a perfect necklace. Maryland's Kingdom. The brochures I'd later see used words like private, sanctuary, and curated living. Words rich people use when they want to claim a natural resource for themselves. I bought my uncle's property for $129,000, a miracle price. The kind of price that makes you feel like you tricked the universe, not realizing the universe was setting the stage for something bigger. I had no idea I'd just bought the part of the lake that controlled theirs. 2 weeks later, while I was replacing rotten planks on the dock, breathing in the comforting scent of fresh cedar and lake air, Marilyn Crestwood descended onto my property like a suburban general. She did not knock. She did not greet. She did not smile. She marched straight up to me with a clipboard, measuring tape, designer tracksuit, and the confidence of someone who'd never been told no in her life. "I'm Marilyn, president of the Silver Shoals Preserve HOA," she declared. "We need to discuss compliance issues immediately." I stared at her, holding my drill. "Ma'am," I said, "I bought this place at a public auction with a clear title. I don't belong to your HOA." Her smile tightened. "Oh, Mr. Delaney," she said, using the tone you'd use for a child who'd drawn on a wall. Everything around here falls under our community standards. Even this structure. She meant the dock my uncle built 40 years ago. The dock that came with the deed. The dock that was legally mine. And that moment, when she sniffed like my existence offended the air, was when I realized something. This wasn't a compliance check. This was a territory claim. 3 days later, she brought back a state inspector. He was not a state inspector. He was Luther Hale, her brother-in-law, wearing a polo shirt with a fake seal ironed on crooked and driving a truck labeled Hale's Home Furnishings. We deliver comfort. Not exactly official. When I called the Montana Department of Environmental Quality on speakerphone, Luther ran so fast he dropped his fake badge and half his clipboard. But Marilyn just crossed her arms and said, "You're intimidating official personnel, and community standards supersede state rules." "The hell they do," I muttered. She glared. "You bought land that should belong to Silver Shoals. We will correct this mistake." That was the moment she picked a fight with the wrong grieving electrician. 2 days after the fake inspection scam, an urgent HOA notice arrived, accusing me of threatening community water privileges and announcing an emergency meeting to force me into selling. That phrase, water privileges, stuck in my head. So I called a real attorney and asked him to explain my deed. When he finished reading, he looked at me like I had just inherited the moon. "Mr. Delaney," he said, carefully, "you didn't just buy lakefront property. You bought the springs, the underground sources that feed the entire lake." He tapped the document again. "You own their water." And suddenly, everything Marilyn had done made perfect sense. She wasn't trying to bully me off a dock. She wasn't trying to enforce standards. She was trying to hide a catastrophic mistake. Silver Shoals had been built without securing water rights. Her entire empire was an illegal house of cards. And I owned the one card that could collapse the whole thing. The morning after my attorney confirmed I owned every drop of water beneath Silver Shoals, a dusty blue pickup rolled into my driveway. Out stepped a guy in work boots, carrying surveying gear like he'd spent his life wandering riverbanks. He had the look of someone who worked with the land, not against it. "You must be Hank," he said, offering a calloused hand. "Name's Colby Rains, local surveyor, and part-time fishing guide when the trout feel generous." I raised an eyebrow. "You here to warn me I'm about to get sued by the HOA?" He laughed, a tired, knowing laugh. "No, friend. I'm here because I got one of those same legal threat letters. I live down by the inlet, in that old converted boathouse. I'm the only other guy around here who's not part of Silver Shoals Preserve." He leaned in. "And Marilyn's been trying to drive me out for 2 years." We stepped inside my cabin, the air smelling like pine boards and old coffee. Spread across the table were my deed papers, survey maps, and the 1880s territorial documents my uncle had somehow preserved like holy relics. Colby scanned the documents, his face setting into something between shock and awe. "Holy hell. Hank, do you understand what you're sitting on? A migraine? A lawsuit?" I offered. "No," he said. "Control. Total control." He pointed to the blue ink markers tracing the underground springs. "These veins. These are the source waters for the entire lake. Every fancy home across that shoreline runs off water that flows through your land. And the developers never filed for any rights. They've been stealing water for 30 years. The words felt unreal. Heavy. Loaded. Before I could speak, my phone rang. Marilyn Crestwood. Her voice was cracked porcelain, polite veneer covering panic. "Mr. Delaney, the community is willing to offer you $300,000 for your property. Cash. Immediate transfer. Let's end this quietly." I put her on speaker. "That's generous," I replied calmly. "But I think I'll hold on to what I have." Silence. Sharp. Hot. Then, "You have no idea what you're doing. That land was never meant to be sold separately, and your behavior has become disturbing. We will pursue every legal remedy available." And she hung up. Colby stared at me. "She's scared out of her damn mind," he said. "And scared people don't fight fair." He was right. The next morning, my dock ropes were sliced clean through. The morning after that, structural bolts loosened. By day 3, someone had spray-painted thief across the boards. Colby knelt by the frayed rope ends and sniffed them like a detective in a crime show. "This is precision work. Someone wanted your dock unsafe, but not destroyed." "A warning?" I asked. "A push," he corrected. "She's trying to get you off this land. But we're going to catch them." By sundown, Colby was back with enough surveillance gear to film a nature documentary. Infrared trail cameras, wide-angle motion sensors, weatherproof audio units. We turned my tiny lakefront lot into Fort Delaney. That night, the cameras caught movement. 2:38 a.m. A figure in black, wearing gloves, carrying cutters. Then the phone call. Clear as daylight. Yeah, Mom. I'm at the dock now. Yes, I painted it. What do you mean a stronger message? You promised me $2,000 for this. Dylan Crestwood, 19, Maryland's son. The next morning, I met him at the only coffee shop in town. The smell of burnt espresso hung heavy as I sat across from him. Dylan, I said, sliding my phone across the table. Recognize this voice. His Adam's apple bobbed like he'd swallowed a brick. My mom. She said you were dangerous. She said the lake wasn't safe, she said. I stopped him gently. Son, your mom lied. He cracked like thin ice. Tears, shaking, panic. And then the avalanche. Marilyn had harassed 3 other homeowners over the years. Forced 2 to sell at a loss. Pocketed commissions through her real estate side business. Used HOA funds for emergency operations that were actually personal expenses. She calls it community cleansing, he whispered. Says some people just don't belong in Silver Shoals. I left the shop with a new resolve burning through my chest. This wasn't just about my dock. This was about justice. And my uncle had left me every tool I needed. That weekend, I faced the one part of the cabin I hadn't touched since moving in. My uncle's basement. It smelled like pipe tobacco and old river mud. Filing cabinets lined the walls, each labeled in careful handwriting. Territorial water rights, 1880s. Spring surveys, 1937 to 1989. HOA disputes, 1994 to 2015. But the most important thing was the letter. A carbon copy from my uncle, written in 1994, addressed to someone named Dana Merriweather. The letter read, Developers never secured territorial rights. My 1880 deed controls all springs feeding the lake. I won't weaponize it unless forced. Neighbors should help neighbors, but they should also respect the law. Trouble is brewing. I found Dana's business card paper-clipped to the letter. My hands shook as I dialed. She answered on the 3rd ring. Hawthorne Ridge Surveying. This is Dana Merriweather. Ms. Merriweather. This is Hank Delaney. I inherited Elliot Rowan's cabin. A sharp inhale. Well, I'll be damned. Elliot finally passed. What can I help you with, son? When I explained the situation, she went quiet. Then, Hank, you inherited absolute power over Hawthorne Ridge Lake. Her words hung heavy. You control the springs, the flow, the rights, everything. You could legally shut off the entire community tomorrow. Suddenly, I understood why Marilyn was spiraling. She wasn't losing a dock. She was losing her kingdom, and she was capable of doing anything to protect it. On Monday morning, I walked into the office of Avery Lockwood, a territorial water rights attorney with a reputation for destroying corrupt HOAs. He read my documents silently for several minutes, then looked up. In 32 years of practice, he murmured, I've never seen rights this ironclad. Hank, you are holding the hydrological equivalent of a nuclear weapon. We assembled a dream team. A hydrological engineer, a survey historian, a private investigator, a financial analyst, a PR strategist. Here's your strategy, Avery said. Step 1, file enforcement notices. Step 2, offer mercy. Step 3, if they refuse, drop the hammer. By the next morning, every homeowner in Silver Shoals had a certified letter demanding $910 per month for lake access, effective immediately, 30 days to comply. Cue mayhem, cars speeding, neighbors shouting on lawns, phones ringing nonstop. Then Marilyn showed up at my door. Designer clothes, eyes bloodshot, hands shaking. Hank, let's talk. She held out a thick envelope. $85,000 cash. From the HOA emergency fund. Take it. Leave. I hit record on my phone. You're bribing me? I asked. You don't understand, she hissed. This community depends on me. Avery later said. She basically gift-wrapped her own federal indictment. That night, she filed 3 false police reports accusing me of threats, stalking, trespassing, and water terrorism. Deputy Calhoun took one look at my recordings and said, Mr. Delaney, she's filed 19 false reports in 2 years. We've been waiting for this. But Marilyn's desperation hadn't peaked yet. First came the flyers. Dangerous man threatens community water. Keep your children away from him. Then the car horns outside my property at all hours. Then the harassing calls. Then the slashed tires. But the moment she tried breaking into my basement to steal the territorial documents was when she crossed the line from unhinged to criminal. I caught her with a crowbar. She looked rabid, cornered, wild. "Hank," she snarled, "you don't understand what these documents will do. They'll ruin everything." "No," I said. "They'll fix everything." The next morning, a flyer slid under every Silver Shoals door. "Emergency meeting, tonight, media invited." Topic: stopping Hank Delaney's water extortion scheme. Avery read it and smiled. She has no idea, she just set up her own execution. The clubhouse was packed. Cameras, reporters, neighbors vibrating with fear and confusion. Marilyn stood at the head table like a queen ready to sentence a criminal. Her PowerPoint was titled, "Protecting Our Community's Future." She painted me as an unstable widower seeking revenge. She called me a vandal, a threat, a water extortionist. People murmured. Some glared. Some looked scared. Then she played her evidence, shaky photos, edited clips, fabricated emails. When she called for a restraining order against me, the room erupted in applause. And that's when I walked to the microphone. Calm, steady, carrying the leather portfolio that held the 1880 deed. "Thank you," I said. "Let's talk about facts." I opened the deed, the old paper crackling under the spotlight. "This document," I said, "was filed with the Montana Territorial Land Office 143 years ago. It grants sole extraction rights to the springs that feed this lake." I projected the hydrological maps. "And this," I continued, "shows that every gallon flowing into Silver Shoals begins on the land I legally purchased." Then Avery stepped forward. "Ladies and gentlemen, Mr. Delaney could shut off your water tomorrow and be entirely within his legal rights. But more importantly," he lifted another document, "your HOA president has been lying to you for years." He played Marilyn's bribery recording, then Dylan's vandalism confession, then the financial records of embezzlement. The room turned. Fast. "No," Marilyn shrieked. "He's manipulating. These are lies. He's dangerous." Deputy Calhoun stepped forward, cuffs in hand. "Marilyn Crestwood, you are under arrest for fraud, embezzlement, vandalism, conspiracy, and filing false reports." Her scream echoed like a banshee as they dragged her out. Silence fell. Then someone stood. Then another. And another. Apologies. Dozens of them. People who had believed her. People who had feared her. People who were finally free. Restoration. The HOA was dissolved and rebuilt. Transparent bylaws. Term limits. Audits. Community oversight. I waived the $3.6 million in backowed usage fees. Instead, we established the Lydia Delaney Conservation and Scholarship Fund, funded by modest water rates. Dylan, once a vandal, became our most dedicated conservation worker, teaching kids how to fish on public access land I donated. The lake became cleaner than ever. The community, kinder. Avery's case became national precedent. Colby married the Channel 9 reporter who covered the story. And I found peace. Every morning, I drink coffee on my uncle's dock. The mist rises. Kids laugh. The lake glows like polished glass. And I whisper a quiet thanks to Elliot, to Lydia, to the land itself. Because justice, when done right, doesn't destroy. It restores. It heals. It frees.